Hey guys, welcome back to LearnFrontend, and today we're going to be building our very first React project together. Now this is a project that focuses mostly on API calls. Now what I mean by that is, look at this, right? So we type in our weather application. So for example, I'm going to be saying, let's go to Tokyo and figure out what the weather is there. We're going to hit the search button and almost immediately we get the city, we get the temperature, and we get the description. So this is what we're going to be building out today, guys. It's going to be a really fun project. You're going to get your hands dirty with some React code, some really clean best practice React code, as well as really good API work as well. So let's get started. So we're going to open a folder, right, in a brand new VS Code project, and we're going to hit new folder, and let's just call this my weather app, just like that. We'll select the folder. Now we're going to obviously open the terminal with Control J or Command J, and we're going to say npx create -react-app and /. So that's just what the / is going to do. Is it's just going to create the React app in the current directory, which is the weather app folder. So give that some time. Now while you're waiting for that, I recommend getting a tab for the degree symbol, because we're going to be using this. Very important to have the degree symbol just for professionalism. It looks really nice, as you guys can see here. If I didn't have that symbol, it would look a bit weird. So get that symbol up and available, and then we're going to set up an API. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we need to create an account. It only takes a couple of seconds. You might have to verify an email. I'm not sure. It's not long. Once you've done that, you're actually going to go to your profile down here, and for me it's Web Dev and Stack, and you're going to go to API keys, and then once you're at API keys, you're going to have this key here. Now you can copy mine, but I don't think it will work. So I highly recommend creating your own. Once you've got that, copy and paste, or copy that key, because we're going to be using that in an API object very soon. So just waiting for this to finish up now, and it looks like we're almost done. Another thing is I've got the background image for the weather app. I just use this one. It's pretty simple and not very high definition, but whatever you guys want to use, feel free to use it. We're going to work with background images and some background positioning in CSS, which I'm not sure if I've touched on in the course yet. So let's get into that. Happy hacking. As soon as you see that, we can just no, we don't need to Control J. We need to go into here and press Control J to close the terminal. Actually, no, we don't. We need to press Control J again. npm start, because we obviously want to start our development. If something is already running, would you like to run the app on another port? Yes, I would. For you guys, it's probably not going to matter because you're not running anything, whereas I'm running the old version of the weather app. So yeah, so we should get something like that. Once you see that, you know you're good to go. So that's the setup done. Let's close this welcome window. And first things first, what I like to do with React projects is go to the SRC, and I want to get rid of pretty much all the files. So app.test.js, we're going to remove that to recycle bin, and we're going to not ask again. Okay, index.css, we don't need you, so we'll delete that as well. Logo, we don't need you. Report, web vitals, don't need you. Setup test, we don't need you. So we just got app.js, app.css, and we're going to get rid of most of this as well. We don't need this. So let's actually see what errors we're getting over here on the right. So most of it should be in index.js. So we need to get rid of the report web vitals. We need to get rid of the import of that. We need to get rid of the import CSS. And if we hit Control S, we're still getting an error. Oh yeah, it's the logo in the app.js. There we go. And logo not defined. Yep, that's all good. We'll just get rid of all this. And best practice is to have the lowercase class names. So I'm going to change the uppercase A in app to lowercase, and boom, we have our clean sheet of React. Really good stuff. Now let's just start off with some default styles. Okay, you guys know the drill by now. Box size and border box, margin 0, padding 0, and my font family sans serif, because I'm lazy and I don't want to go to Google Fonts. But if you guys want to make it really nice, go to Google Fonts, but I wouldn't recommend using this project on your final portfolio. Now some styles for the body. We're just going to set the min height to 100 VH, min width, we may as well set that as well to 100 view width, so 100% of the page. And then display flex, justify content center, line item center, flex direction, we're going to set the column, and you obviously can't see anything happening right now. Now the background image is where stuff's going to actually change. We're going to have a URL, and inside here we're going to pass in a string. And for me, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to copy the image address, and I'm just going to paste that right in between that string right there. And if we hit save, let's see what we're getting. Wrong app. This is what you guys should be getting. So don't worry about that. We're going to change some of the, I'm just going to Control J to get rid of that terminal, make things a bit easier to see. And then under that, make sure we have closing semicolon. We do. We can actually say the background repeat is going to be set to no repeat. We don't want to repeat the background. And the background size down here is going to be cover. So that should fill the entire page, whether you've got it full screen or whatever. So it looks a bit weird there. Actually, you might want to do, maybe is fit a property? Contain? We'll just go with cover for now. This is not a CSS lesson. If you go on Stack Overflow, I'm sure we'll be able to figure out what to go with that. But I don't really care right now. Then for .app, we're going to set the border to 2 pixels, solid white. Then we're going to set the color to white, padding to 100 pixels, min height to 60 view height, and then border radius we're going to set to border radius just 8 pixels around. And once we add some content, that will look really nice. So this isn't a traditional React project where you're passing through props, you're passing state down, or you need a state management library like Redux Toolkit, or use context. But this is more of a React project where it's just simply showing you how to write JSX. So it's a real good emphasis on JSX and good emphasis on API calls, which is a very, very important skill to have in front-end development. So let's get into some of the HTML, or JSX I should say. And inside the weather, or the class name app, we're actually going to have a H1, and we'll give this a class name of web. Sorry, we don't want to give that a class name, my bad. We want to give it content of weather app, because we'll just style the H1 as a whole. Now after that, we want to have an input wrapper. Now, if you guys have been following along with my projects on LearnFrontend, you will know that we have input wrappers pretty much all the time. We're never actually just having an input and a button side by side. We want to actually have a div wrapping it all. So, spoiler alert, we have our input. Type is going to be text, yes. Placeholder is going to be enter city with a couple of full stops. And then on change, we're actually going to, we're going to leave it just like that for now, okay? And then we're going to have a button, and we're going to have an on click. We'll leave it empty for now. And on the button, we'll just say search just like that. And right now it's going to give us errors. So we may as well just start working with some of the React now. So we're going to import inside curly braces, use state. And if you hit enter and you have Emmet installed, or the React snippets, I think you might need to install React snippets. If you followed the Bob Zarel course, then you should have no issues with that. I believe he installed it. So, all right, so what we're going to do here, under the function, we're going to create some state. Now we need some state for searching. So search and set search. It's going to be equal to use state. Now what do we want to set this to? Well, we're going to set it to an empty string initially, because obviously a search, you know, there's only going to be string in search really. And then we're going to have another set of state where we're going to say weather and set weather just like that. And this one is going to actually be an empty object instead. So interesting. Now, while we're here, we may as well actually create another constant called API, and we're going to make that equal to an object. All right, now inside this object, we're going to have a key, and we're going to have a base. All right, so base and key. So for the key, you want to actually grab your key, which I'm going to grab this one. That's my key. I'm going to put some quotation marks. I'm going to press comma, and then for the base, well, this is what the base is going to be. Okay, so copy this out with me: https://api.openweather.map.org/data/2.5/. Okay, this is just the base URL. If you want to check the documentation on the website, feel free to do that. I'm just helping you guys speed through it a bit faster so we can just really practice writing some JSX and working with APIs. So what we want to do now is we want to create a function called handle submit. So const handle submit, I'm just going to write it as a function expression. So we don't need to pass in any parameters. Then we're going to say fetch. Now this is where it gets a bit confusing. We're going to open some template literals up, and we're actually going to use what's in the documentation and just fill out all the parameters, or the queries I should say, with our data. So what I mean by that is the first thing we're going to take in is going to be API.base. Then after that, we're going to say weather $q equals, we'll open up the JavaScript again, search. So that's where our search is going to be. That's our state right here. And then after search, well, we're going to say and symbol, and we're going to say units equals metric and app ID equals, and that's going to equal our API.key. Now that might seem like absolutely crazy gibberish. Do not worry, that's just the documentation. So basically what I do is I copy and paste the documentation, and then I just change the little parameters here with what my data is, like I said. So this is my data, your data will be a bit different because the keys will be different, but at the end of the day, this is the same line that you should have in your code. Now after we fetch, we're going to use .then blocks to break it down. So we're going to turn the response into JSON data, JavaScript object notation data, and then we're going to simply set the result. And we actually need to pass it in like this, result, and we're going to pass that as set weather. Okay, so we're using the set weather state, and we're going to call that result. Now we're getting an error here. I'm not sure what it's saying. Oh, yep, that's why we don't actually need that. And then what's the error we're getting here? Unexpected token. I don't think we need to have that. That's right, because it's got a chain on, and we're still getting that same errors about the on chain. So we can actually change that right now. For on change, what we want to say is we're actually going to write an inline function or a function within the actual on change attribute, and we're going to say e, and this is just going to simply, what it's going to do is we're going to say set search. So we're setting the search to e.target.value. Now you should have learned a little bit about this in React, of course. And then for the hand on the click for the button, obviously we're going to just simply pass in our handle submit function. So now things are starting to look really good. What we can do is we can actually go back to the CSS in a minute, but we'll actually fill out some more of the HTML or JSX. So now there's going to be this really weird thing happen, guys, where basically sometimes one of the properties in the API can return as undefined. So we basically need to handle that error. So the way we do this is we open up some curly braces and we say if the type of weather.main, okay, is not equal to undefined, if that's true, let's open up these, and we're going to say a colon, sorry. And what we're going to do here is we have to have the colon here, my bad. And then we open up more parentheses, and we're going to simply start writing some of the code. And then if it's not that, we're just going to pass in an empty string. Okay, so the code for this, we're going to have a div with a class name of weather-info. Okay, now inside this weather-info, what we're going to do is we're going to have another div called weather-detail. Now within each one of these divs, can get a bit confusing here, we're going to have a p, and that's going to say city. And then outside of the p, we're going to have a span, and that's going to be, and I'm actually going to put these on separate lines just so it's a bit easier. So I just auto formatted it with prettier. You should have the extension by now. So in span, we're just going to simply pass in weather.name. Now, if you actually want to check what we're getting, right, when we're getting, we can simply console log weather. The reason being we can console log weather is because we're setting the weather here to the result that we get back from our API. So if I open the console right now and I just hit save, well, we're getting this object. That's not it. And we're not getting the object here. So what's going wrong? Let's try and work it out. What is actually going wrong with the search term? I think we need to actually enter a city. So if I enter Tokyo, hit search, we're getting city of Tokyo, and here we go. So we're getting the API data back, and this is where we're going to start manipulating some of it, okay? So we're going to grab this temp, we're going to grab some other properties inside here, and basically you don't need to worry about it for now, but I would recommend going through it later and just having a little like browse, just working out exactly what you're doing. So after the span, we can actually close that div. So we should have 3 of these. So we can just copy 3. So 3 different weather details. Second one's going to be temp. And inside here, it's actually going to be, we're going to access 2 dot notations. So weather.main .temp. All right, if I hit save, yep, that's working really nicely. Obviously styling is a big problem at the moment. We don't need to worry about that right now. And then the last one's going to be description, or let's say desk. And then the span is going to be weather at the index of 0, because it's actually an array, this weather, weather dot weather, because the property inside the API is called weather. And then we want to access the first index of it, and then we're going to say dot main, okay? If you want to break it down, just look in the console, like I said. But basically, this is an array of objects, so that's why we have to index it right here. So now that we've got that, let's have a look what we're getting. Awesome. Let's try a different city. Sydney. Should be sunny-ish. Clear, 26 degrees, perfect. Another thing we're going to do is actually take that degree symbol, and we're going to have to copy that. And then inside here, we're going to paste that right over here and say C, just like that. Awesome. Now we can do some styling, and that will pretty much wrap up the project, I believe. I don't think there's anything else we need to do in the app.js. So let's finish off the styles. If you guys would like to do this yourself, absolutely feel free. It's a really good time to practice your CSS if you want to. If you don't want to and you just want to copy my styles, which aren't exactly great, but it's better than what we've got right now. So that's completely fine too. Text align center for the H1, margin bottom, we're going to set it to 18 pixels. Just to get it off that input wrapper. Now we're going to target the weather-info, which is the entire container wrapping all the information. We're just going to set margin 30 pixels and 0, so get that off the input wrapper again. Now, input wrapper, we're going to actually set some more margin because I want it to be I want there to be a bit more margin. So margin 10 pixels 0. And then after the input, do we set the class for input wrapper? We did, okay. That didn't really look like it did much. Anyway, input. Now for this one, we want to just padding 10 pixels. We want to set the border top left radius to 10 pixels. We want to do the same with the border bottom left radius 10 pixels. If you guys have been watching my videos, you know this is how I like to pretty much write my CSS, and like you will actually understand CSS better once you repeat yourself, kind of thing, like in different projects. I'm using rem here. I don't know if I've used rem before in other projects on the course, but important to try and start getting into the habit of using rem instead of pixels. It goes a long way and it's just much more responsive. So after the input, what we want to do is we want to target the button, and we're going to do something similar. So padding 10 pixels to make it look basically the same size. We're going to set the border top right radius, border top right radius 10 pixels. Keep your border radiuses consistent. Bottom right radius 10 pixels. Outline none. Border none. Cursor pointer. Font size. Oops. Font size 1.1 REM. That should pretty much make it the same size. Awesome. Now let's target two elements. So P, spans. We're going to target both of them, and we're just going to set the font size to 1.2 rem, slightly bigger. Okay. Now the weather detail. This is what's actually going to separate the text in the way we want it to. So I'll scroll down real quick. Display flex, align item center, and we're actually going to justify content space between. JCSB. And then we'll set some margin on the top and bottom, 12 and 0 pixels, or 12 pixels and 0. And boom, we have our weather app fully complete, guys. I'm super excited. If you followed the video all the way through, good job. Feel free to drop a like on the video if you're watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, if you're new, feel free to subscribe. I'll just enter one more city. Let's try New Mexico. And boom, 20 degrees in New Mexico. Now, if you guys really wanted to, I would highly recommend you try and find the time. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but if you could try and find the time, even if it's in 24 hours, just add a little extra category right here and chuck in the place's time. I would find that very impressive, and it'd be really good practice for you to build your skills working with APIs. So great effort, guys, building this project out, and I'll see you in the next one.